Erin McKinney, and I use the pronouns she, her. I have the joy of serving on your board of trustees. It's my pleasure to welcome you here today. If you're here for the first time, thank you for joining us. We look forward to getting to know you. We invite everyone present in the sanctuary to join our in-person community time immediately following the service. In the recent rearticulation of values that we American Unitarian Universalists hold most dear, love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. I'm now going to turn it over to Reverend Roger.
I'm Reverend Roger, and my pronouns are he, him. Before introducing our speakers today, I want to take a moment to share from a statement that the Unitarian Universalist Association released last evening. Unitarian Universalism believes in the right of free speech and the democratic process. Attacks like those at Saturday's political rally weaken democracy, and the UUA condemns this attack. At a time when democracy is at risk, these events will only make our political environment more precarious. The statement goes on to say, as we prepare to meet this moment, we must return to our spiritual grounding and faithful practice. Take a breath. Reflect together. Wait for emerging truths over quick speculation. Anchor yourself in communities and relationships that foster resilience, liberation, and strategy. Cultivate nuance and seek out deep wisdom, political analysis, and spiritual grounding as misinformation can be rampant. Let us keep love at the center. The piece concludes, we are in this together. Yeah, it's a good statement. So I'm struck this morning that our topic is related to gun violence. I note, though, that had we had this last weekend, locally, we had a terrible 4th of July weekend in these parts, and it would have been timely then because of all the lives lost during the holiday. The Institute for Nonviolence Chicago is a relationship that Unity Temple has fostered, a relationship with that organization because it is an organization that fosters resilience and liberation and strategy, words from that UUA statement. I'm honored this morning to welcome Shonda Collins and Tavares Harrington. Shonda is the Vice President of Development and Communications for the Institute of Nonviolence Chicago. Tavares Harrington is the Outreach Supervisor in Austin for Nonviolence Chicago. Both Shonda and Tavares, as well as everybody at Nonviolence Chicago, are dedicated to gun violence prevention, intervention, and reduction. They work to help heal and restore Chicago communities with the highest incidences of shootings through street outreach, job programs, behavioral health and wellness, and meaningful partnerships with community violence intervention and research organizations. Theirs is not easy work. It's often heartbreaking work. But courage and tenacity and compassion with those things, they are helping bring more peace, more hope, and more love to Chicago. Shonda and Tavares, it is so great to have you here. I invite everybody to greet them afterwards. They will quickly get to the table in Unity House and be there for you to say hello to and to ask for information. Again, we're really grateful you're here today.
We're so glad that you're all here with us today. We hope that you find the service inspiring and meaningful. And I now invite you to take a moment to greet one another, both online and in the sanctuary.
Chalice lighter today is Madeline Van Heck. Many of us would be perhaps surprised to learn that Madeline is a game inventor. She had a game that was distributed nationally not so many years ago. And Madeline is passionate about creativity and about peacefulness. Oh, and we lost the flame. Let us join together in the chalice lighting words. We are Unitarian Universalists. This is the church of the open mind, loving hearts, helping hands. We take care of the planet Earth and each other.
Beautiful. Thank you, Tom. Good morning. My name is Diana Coates. My pronouns are she and her. And when Reverend Roger asked me to share a personal experience using violence and possibly courage, I had to really meditate and think about that. And after much consideration, I thought of my own childhood, growing up with an alcoholic father. My uncles were alcoholic. My sister died of alcoholism. While my father did not physically abuse me, his behaviors, his anger, and his threats were violent and have had lasting effects on me. I didn't start to address these issues till my 50s. Having gone through a life-changing divorce, it was then that I was ready to search for meaning within myself. It was then that I discovered, amongst other things, Al-Anon. There are two distinct programs for alcoholism, which many of you know, AA. AA is for the alcoholic. Al-Anon is for the family and friends of alcoholics. We share our experience, strength, and hope. Al-Anon has one purpose, and that is to help families, friends of alcoholics. It's free. There are many meetings around. It has been a life changer for me. Together with meditation, daily readers, this is a Al-Anon daily reader, and interestingly, it's called Courage to Change. Thus, I have both words, the courage to change. Freud said, therapy only goes so far. It is then that we need to go deeper. He said in one of his last papers, remember, repeat, and work through. Remember, repeat, and work through. I can do this with Al-Anon, my daily meditations, and attending meetings. Here's the priceless prayer that we say at every meeting. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Grant me the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your life journey and in the world, you are welcome here. Come, let us worship together. We're going to sing a hymn from the Turquoise hymnal. It's page hymn number 1054, and we will only sing the first two verses. Turquoise, thin, here it is, 1054. Please stand.
Let this be a house of peace, of nature and humanity, of sorrow and elation. Let this be our house, a haven for thy healing, an open room for question and our inspiration. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of freedom, guardian of dignity and worth inside us. Let this be our house, a platform for the free voice, where all our sacred differences here shall not divide us. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace.
Please remain standing. Be aware that the sung response after our covenant has different words today, words that fit well with this morning's topic. Please join in the reading of our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God.
is Tristan Hansen. My pronouns are she and her, and I serve on your spiritual care team. Love is the doctrine of this congregation, and sharing the joys and sorrows of our lives with each other is one of the ways we embody love in our congregation. Those attending in person may share your joys and sorrows in the binder outside the doors to the sanctuary, and you may also email your joys and sorrows to us at spiritualcare@unitytemple.org. If you would like to talk with someone about what is on your heart, please feel free to contact the spiritual care team. We are here to listen and sit with you in times of both joy and sorrow. We did not have any joys and sorrows that were shared this week in the binder or by email, but I know that we have all been living through some stuff. We've also all been blessed with grace and the energy of our shared Son this week. We know that we hold many joys and sorrows in silence. At this time, we invite anyone who has a joy or sorrow on their heart to come forward to drop a stone into the bowl of water at one of the 4 stations around the sanctuary. We invite you to engage in the spiritual practice of silence during this shared ritual. Let's begin.
Spirit of life and love, this morning we acknowledge and lament the continued toll of gun violence in our nation. All of us in one way or another are touched by it, some more distantly, some more closely. Some of us, me included, know people who have died by gun violence. Many of us, me included, have been touched by the death of a loved one or a friend or acquaintance by suicide with a gun. Some of us have experienced the threat of gun violence. All of us, no doubt, have watched with broken hearts as scenes of such horror unfolded at places like Sandy Hook Elementary School and the Pulse nightclub. Yesterday, we were reminded again of the terrible role gun violence has played in American politics and public life. In the service this morning, we make space for all of us and all of the ways we have been impacted, each one of us, by gun violence. We hold in our hearts and minds all those who are suffering from the impact of gun violence. The relentless toll of gun violence can be numbing and induce hopelessness. This morning, May we heed the invitation from our guests to be courageous in the face of this relentless toll. May we find ways to make Chicagoland and our nation safer and more peaceful. May we find ways to end the cycle of violence, gun violence in this region, particularly in underserved neighborhoods. May we kindle within ourselves and one another courage and hope and dedication to stay with the struggle. May we each do our own small part to help a new day of peace and well-being dawn in this city, in this region, in this land. May it be so. Amen. Yes, just like this. If you're someone who likes to be close for a story, come on down or up. Thank you. Thank you for modeling. This book is called Love Will See You Through, Martin Luther King Jr.'s 6 Guiding Beliefs. And we're going to go in depth in this book on several of the beliefs. Just name a few of them because it's a bit long. And there's a little subheading under it, as told by his niece. So the author, Angela Ferris Watkins, is the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Love will see you through. Martin Luther King Jr. is recognized as one of the greatest people in history. I'm proud to say that he was also my uncle. Uncle Martin worked hard to end segregation and discrimination against African Americans. As he did so, Uncle Martin helped make America better. He believed that love and nonviolence were the solution. They were the basis of his 6 guiding principles. So the first principle is have courage. Uncle Martin faced adversity with courage. For him, courage meant solving problems without using violence. In 1955, Uncle Martin led a boycott to address the problem of segregation that forced African Americans to ride in the back of the bus or to stand up on public buses in Montgomery, Alabama, and a lot of other places. He encouraged people to stop riding the buses until segregation was ended. One night, as Uncle Martin spoke at a local church in Montgomery, he got the news that his house had been bombed by people who were angry about the boycott. He knew that his wife and 2-month-old baby girl were inside the house. Uncle Martin rushed home. There he found a mass of policemen, news reporters, and fire trucks surrounding his house. There were also many African Americans who wanted him to fight back. Uncle Martin courageously resisted the use of violence that night. First, Uncle Martin made sure that his family was safe. Then he walked onto his front porch and told the people to put down their weapons. He explained that the bus boycott would be won only with the spirit of love. Uncle Martin was right. In December of the following year, he proudly announced that segregation on Montgomery buses was over. The second one is love your enemies. We're going to skip over that one to the third of these guiding beliefs. Fight the problem, not the person who caused it. Uncle Martin fought his problems without fighting people. He believed that if you love your enemies, you can focus all your energy on solving the problem. Just before Easter Sunday in 1963, Uncle Martin went to Birmingham, Alabama, to stop segregation against African Americans in stores and restaurants there. He was arrested and put in jail for protesting. As he read the local newspaper, he discovered a letter from some of his fellow preachers and pastors, people like me. In it, they said that his protests in Birmingham were untimely and that he should back away. Uncle Martin wrote a letter in response that did not attack the preachers and pastors, but rather focused on the problem of segregation. In his letter, he expressed his love and respect for the ministers. He knew that his letter was an opportunity to explain to hundreds of people why the battle for equality must be fought. Uncle Martin's letter received a lot of public attention and became famously known as the letter from Birmingham jail. So there's a picture of him writing that letter in the jail. The fourth guiding principle is when innocent people are hurt, others are inspired to help. And we're going to skip over that one to 5, resist violence of any kind. Uncle Martin believed that we are all connected to one another. If someone hurts another person, they are also hurting themselves. He also understood that violence is a destructive force, but that love has the power to create and build. So even when Uncle Martin was hurt, he did not respond with violence. In 1966, he went to Chicago to protest practices that kept African Americans from having the same kind of housing as white people. As he and others marched, someone who hated his protest threw a rock and hit him in the head. Uncle Martin fell down on one knee for several moments. He didn't yell out, throw the rock back, or encourage his supporters to fight back. He knew that responding with violence would destroy his chances of creating better housing for African Americans. Uncle Martin got back up and he continued the march. With a spirit of love, he stayed focused and he kept working. Later that year, the Real Estate Board, Housing Authority, and banking institutions of Chicago all agreed to stop housing discrimination toward African Americans. And 6, the universe honors love. Uncle Martin believed that a higher force in the universe honors us when we use love. He put a lot of love into the universe, and the universe honored him by giving him the power to achieve great things. Although he lived his life in constant danger, he refused violence because he knew love would prevail. Though Uncle Martin was killed by an act of violence, people have honored his legacy of love. The name Martin Luther King Jr. is recognized all over the world. A national holiday is named for him and celebrated every year. Countless city streets are named after him. All over the world, buildings and memorials stand in tribute to him. But more important than that, America is a better place because of Uncle Martin. Uncle Martin was a man of peace. Love was his way of life. Uncle Martin's 6 guiding beliefs teach us that love has power. His life was proof that love will see you through. And that's the end of our story today. Thank you for coming up. And you can go to Unity House.
Each week, Unity Temple splits the offering evenly. One half supports the programs and missions of our congregation. And in July, gun violence prevention is our Faith in Action focus, while the other half will be given to the Institute for Nonviolence Chicago. The mission of the Institute is to dismantle violence and to build a safe, peaceful, and just Chicago. Last year, the Institute for Nonviolence staff conducted over 314 mediations that likely prevented a shooting and established 40 new peace agreements. And in 2023, 3 of the 4 areas that the Institute services showed a higher reduction in shootings than the citywide average. You can give a donation by placing cash or check in one of the baskets being passed around now, or you can follow one of the many ways to give that are printed in your order of service. May what you give bring you joy and bring more peace into our world.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tavares Harrington. My pronouns are he and him. The reading today will be from 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 13 through 14. Be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong, do everything in love. Paul's exhortation reminds us that true strength and courage are rooted in love and faith. We exist in communities marked by violence and aggression, but we are here to help offer a different path, a path of courageous nonviolence.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for this opportunity and for being here. You'll have to bear with me a little bit. I don't get too emotional about too many things, but this has been a beautiful service. First of all, I'm a Capricorn. I really don't get emotional at all. But there's a few things that I find very passionate, or I have a passion for, and it's this work. So I have the honor and the privilege of serving as a leader in our organization, and I have the honor and the privilege of sharing with you all today. So again, thank you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your offering. Thank you, Roger and Marcia and Madeline and the Faith in Action team for the invitation here today. When they said sermon, I was like, okay, let's do this. But we won't be before you long. But everything that's been said up until this point really aligns really well and really perfectly with what our message is today. With our work, that the reading or the book that was shared, it follows 6 principles of love, which we actually, through our work, call it the 6 principles of nonviolence. If you want to learn more about those and see those, we actually have them at our table for you to review when we are concluding the service. But looking at those, really the goal is to achieve justice and to achieve cultivating a beloved community. And that's done through what the first principle states is nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people. So we're going to take a couple minutes. If we go too long, just cut us off at whatever point you need to. But a couple minutes to just talk through what that really looks like. Looking at the reflection of the verse in 1 Corinthians, we see that theme throughout Scripture. Take courage many, many times, or do not fear. That's probably one of the biggest themes in the Bible text. So it's really important for us to take a deeper dive into that. So the first point, it takes courage to believe differently. So in our work, one of the main things that we see or we try to capture, especially through the principles of nonviolence, is attacking the forces of evil, not the person. We heard that through the story this morning as well. And that takes a lot of courage to do that. Roger shared about the incident yesterday, and that being could be looked at as an act of retaliation or of just intense feelings about what somebody else believes. But it takes a lot of courage to look at a situation that might look hopeless at this point and say, I'm going to believe differently about this. I'm going to take a courageous route to not look at that person, but the forces of evil. Again, looking at yesterday, had he been taken out, the force of evil would still remain. It does nothing, in a sense, to eliminate or take out or attack an individual. And on the flip side, we see that when we're on the outside looking in. So you may see or hear about a situation and may think something about the individual that made the choice to shoot another person. But the reality of it is there's so much that may have happened in their life up to that point where they felt like they had absolutely no choice, or they were in a circumstance where they hadn't learned how to navigate those feelings or emotions. We even see in our hiring practices, we try to hire men and women from the communities that we serve. And I think about sometimes, some of them, this is their very first job, right? They're in a legal capacity, we'll say that. And they haven't used Excel, or they haven't used Outlook. And some of the things that those of us who have been in more of a workforce context for a longer time have taken years and decades to learn. So it even takes courage for us to, be able to work together in that capacity and not judge or look at this as or look at someone and attack them for where they may be in their process, right? So we see that in both ways. As a shooter, as someone outside of the context, taking courage to believe differently, it can be a journey. And I want to invite Tavares back up here so he can share just a little bit about what that looks like in action with us and in the context of our work.
Our work, IMC work, our outreach team goes out into the community and try to establish relationships with the most at-risk individuals. When I say at risk, that means of potentially being shot or at risk of shooting someone. Once we identify someone of being at risk, we then try to establish a relationship with that individual and offer services. We call them wraparound services. These services include victim services, behavioral health, case management, reentry, outreach, as well as nonviolence training, CBI, FLIP, which is a stipend program, and workforce development. Through these key pillars that we have at Institute for Nonviolence, that's how we attack the forces of evil and not the person.
So yes, it takes a commitment to do that and to look at the principles of love and justice and nonviolence, and know that it demands a lot of trust to embrace that vision for a peaceful community, a peaceful world. But it really starts with that belief. Next, when you take your belief, we have to put it in action. The group is called Faith in Action, right? So it takes courage to act differently as well. So one of the other key principles is that we accept suffering without retaliation for the sake of the cause. So Tavares is going to come back up and share some of his personal experience, and then just, I've just looking at different texts to prepare for this, I really thought about Jesus and how he had the opportunity to, retaliate or react in the way that they were saying he should have, based on who he was, right? So even on the cross, being mocked and it being said that, you can take yourself down at any time, right? Or when he was actually being physically beaten, he could have retaliated in any type of way, but we see a very courageous act, and that was to continue to accept the suffering for the sake of a larger cause, for the sake of love. So again, I'm going to invite Tavares back up here to share some of his personal experience in with respect to what we see on a daily basis when there is an incident, and then what that process looks like after the fact for someone who may be affected from that, from the family's perspective. So I'll let him come back.
Accept suffering without retaliation for the sake of the cause. I found myself in that position before. I lost my mother to gun violence. I was 14 years old, getting ready to enter high school. This was 1994. She was shot in a crossfire between two gangs. It took a lot of courage to deal with something like this. It took courage to not to retaliate, because I knew the individuals who were involved with my mom's passing. I didn't want to be like them. I didn't want their family to hurt like mine. I wanted to be a voice of change. I wanted to help people and not hurt them. There's a phrase, violence begets violence. This means that violent behavior can lead to more violent behavior. We must be courageous in these times, in these tough times. To accept suffering without retaliation is courageous.
Acting differently means choosing love over hate and retaliation, peace over conflict, and forgiveness over retaliation. It's about embodying the teachings around love in every aspect of our lives, even when it's challenging or even dangerous, as we can see. We can continue to act as well in different ways. It may have been a stretch for you today to give in the offering, but that was an act of courage to act differently, so that we can see differently in our communities. It may be an act of courage to come and talk to us after service today, and see what happens differently as a result of that. So yes, I encourage you to keep taking courage and keep finding ways to act differently in response to, because we do that too, even if we're not maybe directly connected with a particular incident that we hear about. There's other ways that sometimes we, kind of act in a way that is perpetuating the violence, and we don't even know it, right? So happy to talk more about that at the end of service, and find ways that we can get you all connected and more information about that. So the last thing is, it takes courage to want differently. So we may have a belief about something, we can act on it, and we also have to want that. Like, there's a direct relationship between the two, or the three of those concepts, as far as being able to, understand enough to accept it or believe it, to understand enough to where we want to take action or we want to do something active to be a part of the process. But without wanting that to actually happen, without having a vision for what that looks like, and coming alongside other people who do, and being vulnerable enough to see that. The stone activity earlier, that was beautiful to me. It takes an act of courage to come up and say, I want something different. So I'm going to take this ritual as an example, or as a way to demonstrate that I want different for my life. So again, I'm going to invite Tavares up to talk about our cognitive behavioral intervention programs, and how we help our participants to want to change. Yes, there's certain circumstances that are out of their control, and I love that serenity prayer that was shared by Diana earlier. We want folks to take accountability for how they may have perpetuated violence, and then we want them to see a better life and to be able to see easier access to choosing nonviolence. So, that's the work that we do. We try to give people the tools so that they have an easier choice to make when they're faced with conflict or with an opportunity to retaliate or choose violence. We want them to want not to take that route. So I'm gonna bring Tavares back up to talk about our therapy and cognitive behavioral intervention.
CBI impact, cognitive behavioral intervention. Many people are not familiar with it, but I'm going to give you the definition of what it is. Cognitive behavior intervention teaches individuals to examine their own thoughts and emotions, recognize when negative thoughts and emotions are escalating in intensity, and then use strategies to change their thinking and behavior. With our participants, we use examples like, think of yourself as a fresh bottle of soda and someone shook you up pretty hard. Now, if you take some time and ease the top off, it won't explode. But if you hurry up and rush and take the top off, then you have a mess. So we kind of give them, that's the thought of, if you don't think about your actions, take time and think about your actions before you make the wrong move or possibly make a mistake. This has had a significant impact on our participants and staff, way of thinking and reacting to stressful or pressured situations. Participants are now taking time to evaluate situations before reacting. They're taking time to think about their emotions. I've seen participants even learning and trying to be considerate of others people's feelings and emotions. CBI is truly working.
So again, nonviolence and creating a peaceful community, that's something that we all have to take courage to want. Our participants, our staff, and even all of you, when we look at the greater context of what we want to see in our city, in the Chicagoland area, and looking at that as a bigger, beloved community, that's something that we all, if we say we want peace, then we all need to want it and act on it and believe that even when it looks like there's defeat, when the trends don't look like it's making progress, it is. And we can say that. Roger read earlier that we've seen reduction in violence over the last 5 years. Just across the line on Austin Boulevard, we saw a record-breaking 50% reduction in 2022. And since then, we've remained steady in the Austin community. Same for the other 3 communities that we serve in. And so, but sometimes, yes, there are painful realities that there's still much work to be done. We just came off of a very tragic holiday weekend. We had 3 mass shootings in Austin alone. Our team is working around the clock till about 6 a.m. Going into the next morning to be there for families and to comfort them and make sure they have the resources and the behavioral health services that we could provide. And then there's the aftermath thereafter. We're still working diligently. I'm fielding calls from the media left and right and having to really be intentional about what the narrative is even. So again, it takes courage to want there to be different and not have the same stories perpetuated, the same activities happening, but really do the work to make those changes. So yes, in conclusion, achieving justice and living in a peaceful community is only possible through courageous nonviolence. As we believe differently, act differently, and want differently, we embody the teachings of love and become agents of peace in the world. So I just encourage you to heed again the words of Paul in 1 Corinthians. Be on your guard against the forces of evil. Stand firm in your faith when it looks like we've been defeated or that there's no progress. Be courageous in your love and in your pursuit of peace. Be strong against maybe your own internal conflict, your own internal shame or violence against your own self. And do all of this absolutely in love. So may we have the courage to embrace nonviolence in our thoughts, our actions, and our desires. And in doing so, we witness the transformative power of love in all of our communities. Thank you all so much.
Shonda and Tavares, we can't thank you enough. That's an expression of our gratitude. You're sharing your own stories. The inspiring work that you do means a great deal. I'm personally grateful to our team, our Faith in Action team, that has found such a worthy organization to work with and to introduce to us. This work is so important. Our closing hymn today is number 163, For the Earth Forever Turning. This is one that we often think about when we're thinking about environmental themes. It occurred to both Marty and me when we were looking at hymns that this includes that and more, and anyway, it's all related, and so this is how we'll start wrapping up our service today. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join in singing 163 in the large hymnal. It'll be good to hear those words from Corinthians one last time. Be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong, do everything in love. Let's join in the chalice extinguishing words that are in the order of service. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again.